Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Noah here, breaking down my first look at the Week 10 NFL slate on Draftkings. Like always, we're going to go through each position to just talk about a couple plays that stand out at each position. Just sort of take a first look at the slate, see guys that maybe stand out based on their price, their matchup, their opportunity. We'll go through and do that at quarterback, running back, receiver, and tight end. Defense, I won't spend much time on. I'll just kind of plug in a defense. We will build out a first look lineup. This will be more cash game based. Just talk about players maybe that stand out given targets, projected volume for their price. That would maybe be good cash plays as we get closer to Sunday. Obviously, this will not be my only NFL video this week. I will have more NFL content coming out throughout the week. For the showdown slates, I'll have a video on Friday for my final look where I actually give out some of my favorite plays for this week. Also, I'll be making daily NBA videos as well. So I do have a ton of content coming out for you guys. I would definitely appreciate it if you would click that subscribe button. Also, be sure to click the notification bell so that way you get notified every time I upload. And drop a like on this video. Definitely helps me out a lot. Also, you can comment down below your thoughts on this Week 10 slate. You see any guys that stand out to you, feel free to comment that down below. Always appreciate you guys' comments and feedback. But let's go ahead and take a look at quarterback this week. It's another slate where there's not much to love at the top, or at the bottom, I should say. At the top, there's definitely guys to like at the top. You got Lamar Jackson against the Bengals. I mean, great spot for Lamar Jackson. I know he's already faced the Bengals once this year, and I'm pretty sure he had a very solid game against them. I can't remember what week it was. Yeah, week 6 against the Bengals, 33 DraftKings points. I mean, Lamar Jackson just gives you so much upside. Obviously, as a rusher, that's where his upside really comes from. He had 152 rushing yards in that game, ran the ball 19 times. I mean, this dude's literally like a running back that can also throw as well. Jackson just has so much upside. For cash games, though, it's very tough to pay up at quarterback unless we get value plays as the week goes on. Like last week in Week 9, we did have Jalen Samuels as a top value play. He was not available in the first look video because I recorded that on Monday. James Conner had not gotten hurt yet. I recorded that before the Monday night game, so we didn't know about Jalen Samuels in the first look video. That's why I always like to update my videos throughout the week as we get more injury news, as practices go out or come out throughout the week, practice news. Always like to update my videos, so maybe we'll be able to get up to Lamar Jackson if some values opens up as the week goes on, but it's going to be tough to play him in cash games at 7,300. Obviously for tournaments, though, he has a high ceiling. I mean, pretty much the highest ceiling at the quarterback position. Jameis Winston, I think, is another guy that has a very high ceiling at home against the Cardinals. He continues to just throw the ball 40, 50 times a game. I know he's throwing multiple interceptions every game, but that doesn't really hurt you for fantasy. Losing 1 point for an interception really doesn't kill you when Winston's throwing for 300-plus yards and multiple touchdowns every game. Over 20 DraftKings points in 3 straight. Now he gets to face a bad Cardinals defense, a Cardinals team that we know wants to play fast this season. That runs a lot of no huddle, just allows the other team to get more possessions. So Winston and Jackson are definitely in good spots. I think Drew Brees at home against the Falcons, also in a very friendly matchup as well. So those guys would definitely be in play for me. It's just going to be hard to get there in cash games. Usually we're going to need to try and find some value. Also like Kyler Murray in a great matchup against the Bucs. Bucs pass defense has just been so bad this season. Murray's pretty nicely priced at 6,500. So he could definitely be in consideration for cash. I just have a feeling, though, we're going to need to go cheap at quarterback like most times we need to do. So like you have Brissett at home against the Dolphins, who can maybe be playable if he's able to go this week. If he's out, Brian Hoyer will draw the start, and Hoyer's 5,900. DraftKings did adjust his price correctly. So you're not getting much of a discount on Hoyer, but for 5,900 in a matchup with the Dolphins, him and Brissett, whichever one starts, could be playable for cash this week. Sam Darnold has not been good this season, but is in a friendly matchup at home against the Giants. Same could be said for Daniel Jones getting to face the Jets. But I want to talk about Ryan Tannehill. I think Ryan Tannehill is someone that really stands out early looks. I mean, 5,100 at home against the Chiefs. I actually played Tannehill in cash in Week 8 when he was at home against Tampa Bay. He was also 5,100 on that slate. He threw the ball 33 times in that game, 21 completions, 193 yards, 3 touchdowns. I mean, Tannehill's been good since he's taken over for Marcus Mariota. In the 3 games that he started, he's gone for 23, 19, and 28 DraftKings points. Now he gets a matchup at home against a Chiefs defense that has struggled this year. You do expect the Chiefs offense to be able to put up points. Tennessee, I'm sure, is underdogs in this game, so they're probably going to be trailing. going to have to throw. I think for 5,100, we can definitely look to Ryan Tannehill in cash this week. I think he could be viable, just a first look. Obviously, if we get some value as the week goes on and we can spend up at quarterback, that'd probably be the best way to go. But for now, I think going cheap with Tannehill makes a lot of sense. But under Tannehill, there's really not much I like. I mean, I don't want to play Baker Mayfield. Matt Moore maybe if Mahomes doesn't play, but I think Mahomes is going to play this week, so that probably takes him off the board. So Tannehill's probably the cheapest quarterback that I like at 5,100. But now at the running back position, Christian McCaffrey, the most expensive guy here, to no surprise, 10,500 this week on DraftKings. I have a feeling we're going to be able to fit him in. I mean, I was looking at receiver, and there are some viable, cheap receivers this week. There's actually quite a bit of them, so we should have the salary to fit in McCaffrey. People were questioning whether they should play him last week when he was 10K, and Christian McCaffrey just does what he did. I mean, does what he does. 24 carries, 146 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, also 3 catches for 20 yards and a receiving touchdown, 40 DraftKings points from Christian McCaffrey. I mean, that was a really good game from him, but we've just seen McCaffrey put up games like that multiple times this season where he goes for 100 rushing yards and multiple touchdowns. I feel like that's almost his floor at this point. I mean, the guy's just so good. He's had one bad game this year against Tampa Bay. Other than that, you're getting 20-plus DraftKings points from McCaffrey every week. For cash games, there's nobody in NFL DFS that gives you a higher floor than Christian McCaffrey. So I'm just going to keep plugging him in. I do like the matchup as well. Green Bay has struggled versus the run this season. We saw what Melvin Gordon did to them last week. You can definitely take running backs against Green Bay. So McCaffrey at 10.5. We're going to have to find some value at receiver, but I think we'll be able to get him in the first look video. But then other running backs you do have at the top, you got like Barkley against the Jets, Kamara at home against the Falcons, who I would really like, but he's questionable as we head into Week 10. We'll have to watch the injury news, see if he's going to be able to fully go. Then you got like Aaron Jones at home against the Panthers, who's definitely viable. I really like that matchup. Panthers have been struggling versus the run this season, especially as of late. Latavius Murray would definitely benefit from Kamara being out, and he could maybe be someone we look to. But I don't have a feeling we're going to need to probably go a little bit cheaper. Last week, I was able to pay up for McCaffrey and Cook in cash games because of Jalen Samuels being a top value play and being so cheap. I don't know if we're going to have like that 4K or $4,500 running back that's going to be a clear value this week. So we're probably not going to be able to pay up for like McCaffrey and Barkley or McCaffrey and Kamara. So we might have to look to this mid-range. In this mid-range, you do have a lot of viable plays here. I think Marlon Mack at home against the Dolphins stands out as an option at home for 7K. Le'Veon Bell as well against the Giants feels like a really good option. Squeaky Will narrative came through last week. There was talk that Le'Veon Bell needed to get more work, and he did so. 17 carries in that game against the Dolphins, 66 rushing yards, also 8 catches for 55 yards. Bell just gets so much work in both the passing game and the running game. We know he's going to get double-digit carries pretty much every game. If the Jets are trailing, they're going to use Le'Veon Bell a ton in the passing game. He can get receiver-like targets. He is questionable. We don't know his status going into Sunday. If he plays, I think he's a very strong option at 6,900, and I don't mind plugging him in the first look video for now. Obviously, if Bell was out, I'm not sure what Bilal Powell is, but he's really cheap. He's 3K. Ty Montgomery as well. We'll see what Ty Montgomery is. Ty Montgomery's 4,100. Montgomery, I would imagine, would draw the start in the sense that Bell is out. So that would definitely be like our Jalen Samuels play this week, would be Ty Montgomery. But let's just take a look at some of the other running backs before we move on to receiver. Like Jalen Samuels, he was a top value last week for 4K with James Conner out. DraftKings did a good job of pricing him up, 6,300. It's going to be hard to play him even if Conner is in this week. 6,300, very expensive for Samuels. I think he's probably worth the price tag. I mean, the guy probably would project for 17, 18 DraftKings points if Conner sits here. He got 8 carries, 10 rushing yards. He was very inefficient on the ground, but he did do his damage in the passing game, and that's where I expected him to do his damage. Samuels is a very good pass-catching running back. He got 13 targets, 13 catches for 73 yards. On a PPR scoring site like DraftKings, getting a running back that can get that many targets, that many receptions is just so valuable. He was one of the clear plays last week at 4K. Obviously, totally different story this week at 6,300. But definitely would at least be in consideration if James Conner is unable to go. But I have a pretty good feeling Conner's going to be able to suit up this week against the Rams. Let's just take a look at some of the other running backs we have on this slate. You got like David Montgomery at home against the Lions, who I definitely think would be in play. The Lions have been getting killed on the run this season. They really struggled to stop Josh Jacobs. He had a big game against them. Dalvin Cook had a big game against them. I mean, taking running backs against the Lions has been successful so far this season, especially as of late. Montgomery's only 5,300 at home. Obviously, the concern is if the Bears get behind, do they use Montgomery? He has been getting a little bit more work in the passing game recently, which you do like to see. 5 targets week 8, 4 targets week 9, not just completely taken out of the passing game. So if the Bears are playing from behind, I think Montgomery will still get a little bit of work. I mean, he's been very good recently. The carries have been there. He's still going to get the ball, touch the ball probably 15 times at least. So he could definitely be a potential flex option as we move down throughout the lineup. But let's move on to receiver real quick. Actually, let's plug in a defense. Let's just plug in a cheap home defense so we can see like how we sit with the rest of our lineup. Usually like to target defenses at home for cheap, and a couple that stand out, maybe the Bucks, Steelers. I think the Browns at home against the Bills really stand out. Josh Allen been taking a lot of sacks this season. We'll go with the Browns right now as our first look defense, but now we got 5K remaining per position once we plug in that cheap defense, so that kind of gives us a good idea of how we are going to be able to construct the rest of our lineup. So at receiver, I don't think we're going to be able to pay up for the guys at the top, especially going with like Christian McCaffrey and Le'Veon Bell. But obviously, Michael Thomas is a great play this week at home against the Falcons. Falcons have a terrible secondary. They've been bad defensively against the pass this season. Getting Drew Brees back is a boost for Michael Thomas. We saw it last week against the Cardinals. 11 targets, 11 catches, 112 yards, and a touchdown. I mean, Thomas is going to get 10 targets minimum, feels like just about every week. Obviously, with Drew Brees at quarterback, there's going to be some high-value targets as well. 8,300 is probably going to be tough to get there in cash games, like I said, unless we get some value, but Thomas will definitely be on my radar in tournament lineups. Same for a guy like Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. They would definitely be on the radar for tournaments. I think a potential cash play that you could look to if you're paying up at receiver is Davante Adams. Davante Adams, 6,900 at home against the Panthers. First game back from injury. Last week against the Chargers, you did get 11 targets from Davante Adams, 7 catches for 41 yards, 11 DraftKings points. Wasn't his best game, but the volume was still clearly there. We obviously know he is Aaron Rodgers' go-to guy. 6,900 for Davante Adams is really cheap, and I think we could definitely plug him in the lineup and see if we can make it work. Once we plug him in, that's going to leave us 45-25 remaining per player for 2 receiver spots, tight end and a flex. I have a feeling we're going to be able to find some 5K and below receivers. There will probably be some cheap tight ends we can find as well. So let's go with Davante Adams as a potential cash play this week, just given the price tag and the projected volume that he should see. Like, you just look in that price range. I mean, obviously Kenny Galladay should get plenty of volume, but on the road against the Bears, I'd probably prefer to go to Davante Adams. Same with like Cooper Kupp. Kupp's going to see a lot of volume, but on the road against the Steelers, probably not going to be an optimal play this week. I think Davante Adams does stand out as a potential cash play. Another guy that's really underpriced, Odell Beckham. I mean, Odell Beckham for 6,100. Tough spot against the Bills. Bills have a really good defense, a really good secondary. Trey White's been great this season. But Odell Beckham's still a guy that just has so much upside. He's still getting targeted. I mean, 6 to 7 targets every week. He's not getting the volume that we used to see him get, where he was getting double-digit targets every week. But still getting Odell Beckham, one of the highest upside receivers in fantasy at only 6,100. Could potentially be playable this week. I don't know if he's going to be an optimal cash play, but maybe for tournaments we could look to go that route. Taking a look at some of these 5K receivers, Juju Smith-Schuster feels like he's underpriced, but still, I mean, he just hasn't been great lately. Mason Rudolph hasn't been able to get him the ball. I mean, Juju's just too inconsistent, I think, to consider for cash games, even at 5,800. Larry Fitz, it feels like a really good option for cash, 5,500 against the Buccaneers. Zach Pascal, we saw, had a really good game last week with T.Y. Hilton out. Now he gets a matchup at home against the Dolphins. I think Pascal will definitely be an option. Up to 5,300, though, I don't think he's as strong of a play as he was last week. I did have a good game last week, 5 catches, 76 yards and a touchdown. He did get targeted 6 times. So maybe we could look there in that 5K range. Same with like DJ Moore, Christian Kirk, Marquise Brown. I mean, all these guys I think are definitely going to be viable for cash games this week. And then even once you get 5K and below, you got like Jamison Crowder at home against the Giants. I mean, Crowder just getting targeted a ton by Sam Darnold. And that's something we always want to look for in cash games. We want those receivers that we know are going to get targets. Crowder obviously fits that bill. Jarvis Landry, a guy that's going to get a lot of targets. He was very popular last week. against Denver. I think he was targeted like 14 times. Yeah, 13 targets last week, 6 catches, 51 yards. Still 4,900 on DraftKings. Like I said earlier, with Odell Beckham, it's not the best spot against the Bills, but Landry is so cheap that I think he could definitely be viable this week. A couple guys, though, that stand out to me below 5K. Tyler Boyd's one that really stands out. Only 4,700 on DraftKings. This is a guy that just still sees a ton of volume, even though the game log has not been consistent lately and it's not been very pretty. I mean, he's still getting 14-7, 14-9 targets just the last 4 games. There was sort of a narrative going on earlier this season to take slot receivers against Baltimore because they had really struggled versus slot receivers, and that is where Tyler Boyd runs a lot of his routes. So maybe Boyd could definitely be viable this week. AJ Green could come back this game. I know he's listed as questionable on DraftKings. Let's see what it says in the blurb. Not John Brown. Let's go to AJ Green. Hopes to be a full participant next Wednesday when Cincinnati releases his first injury report for their Week 10 game against Baltimore. So I guess there's a chance AJ Green comes back this week, but just assuming he's out, getting Tyler Boyd for 4,700 in a game where the Bengals are most likely going to have to throw a ton, I think he really stands out early on in the week. And plugging him in leaves us 44.66 remaining per player for 3 spots. Let's go ahead and plug in or look for a cheap tight end. Then we'll fill out the last 2 spots. So at tight end, we know we're not going to have the salary to pay up for guys like Kelsey, Ingram. I mean, obviously Kelsey is a high floor play every week, but he's just not an optimal play in cash games. Rarely do I spend up at tight end in cash games unless there's just a lot of value elsewhere. If you were to spend up, though, I mean, you got like Hooper, Kelsey, Ingram, who would be strong options. But let's look for some value here, see if we can find some guys 4K and below. I think with T.Y. Hilton out, you're going to see Eric Ebron and Jack Doyle be more consistent, be targeted more in the end zone. I mean, they're already getting a decent amount of red zone looks, but without T.Y. Hilton, I think Ebron and Doyle, especially at home against the Dolphins, would be playable. You got the flow chart, Cameron Brate facing the Buccaneers, who could definitely be a play. O.J. Howard is questionable, and I believe O.J. Howard is expected to play this week. He's only 3,300 on DraftKings. I know he hasn't been good this season, but this is the best possible matchup facing the Cardinals. The Cardinals have just been so bad this season against tight ends. At 3,300, I mean, we need to save, so I don't mind plugging in O.J. Howard for now, especially just factoring in the matchup. I think he's a very talented tight end. They're going to find ways to get him the ball, and I don't think he's just going to continue to be this bad the rest of the season. So I do like O.J. Howard, just a first look, 3,300. That leaves us 550 remaining per player. So we got a couple ways we can go with the last 2 spots. Just looking to fill out maybe a running back at our flex. I usually always try and play 3 running backs if possible. There were a couple guys that I hit on earlier. We'll take a look at them real quick. You're not going to be able to get like Mack, I don't think, or Derrick Henry or Samuels, but someone like David Montgomery, who I did talk about at home against the Lions. I talked about how bad the Lions have struggled against the run this season. Only thing I'm worried about here is game script. If the Lions do get a lead and the Bears are trailing, then obviously Montgomery might not get as much volume as we would like, but still, I mean, he's getting 10 to 15 carries every week. They've been using him a little bit more in the passing game. So I think plugging in David Montgomery makes some sense at 5,300. You plug him in, that leaves us 4,800 for a receiver, and there are definitely viable receivers at 4,800. Curtis Samuel against Green Bay would definitely be a good option. Curtis Samuel just continues to get peppered with targets every week. He's very consistent, 6 to 8 targets seems like every week. Got 11 targets week 8 against San Francisco. So Samuel is someone you could plug in. Also, Devontae Parker's 4,800, and he could for sure be an option here, especially with Preston Williams now on injured reserve and out for the rest of the season. That should open up plenty of targets for Devontae Parker. I did play Parker last week, 4 catches, 57 yards, and a touchdown. He did have a pretty decent game against the Jets. In a matchup here on the road against the Colts, obviously you'd expect the Dolphins probably lose this game and to be trailing a lot, so they're going to have to throw. Devontae Parker without Preston Williams should see plenty of volume. At 4,800, we can plug him in to finish out the first look lineup, and I think that's definitely a good first look lineup to start off the week. Obviously, this is not the lineup that I'm playing. I'm recording this video on Tuesday, so we're still waiting on a lot of injury news, still waiting on practice reports to come out for the rest of the week, but I think this is a good way to start, a good dummy lineup to start for now. But anyways, guys, I think that pretty much is it for the first look video. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. I do really appreciate you watching. If you enjoyed, make sure you drop a like. As always, feel free to leave any comments down below. Comments regarding this Week 10 slate. If you see guys that stand out to you, early look. If you have any feedback you want to leave, feel free to leave any feedback down in the comment section as well. And as always, you can subscribe and click the notification bell so that way you never miss out on any of my new videos. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed the video, and good luck this week, guys. Peace.